Hello and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We are live from our studios in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. Our top stories this hour. Defense Minister Dominic Nitiwul challenges former President John Mahama to provide evidence of claims that the military is intimidating prospective registrants.
The position of the former president is a revered position. And I think that for him to continuously and his party try to run down the military is very unfortunate. It is in their interest not to try to run down the only institution that will be the last man standing to protect us. He was just the commander-in-chief 4 years ago, and I'm very much worried.
More on this as the NDC accuses the governing party of scheming to disenfranchise Ghanaians. Meanwhile, 9 persons arrested on suspicion they faked their nationalities in order to obtain a voter ID card in Ghana. They have appeared before court. Details here on the Pulse, and the hashtag Justice for Ikia Denta movement seems to be getting some hope as one of the key suspects in the murder of a 90-year-old woman has been charged. 25-year-old Latifa Bumaye accused Ikia of being a witch, but she says she herself was possessed. All the details and more from now till 5 p.m. Stay with us.
The Pulse.
Great to have you with us. Now, Defense Minister Dominic Nitiwul is challenging former President John Dramani Mahama to provide evidence of his claims that the military is being used to intimidate prospective voters in NDC strongholds. Addressing a media briefing in Parliament House to respond to a social media statement by the former president, Mr. Nitiwul insisted the figures on registration so far don't support these claims. He says the former president got it all wrong and was misled. He, however, insisted the military has a responsibility to stop foreigners from entering the country, and they will continue to do that vigorously.
And so the military was rightly deployed by the Regional Security Council to ensure that their orders were strictly followed. If you were a military man and you saw people in vehicles coming to come and register, what would you do? You also obviously have to stop them and ask them to walk individually to the polling stations. That's exactly what the military is doing in the area. It doesn't matter whether you are sitting Ketia or you are Dominic Nitiwul or you are an ordinary man sitting in Doman Hikro. You will be stopped because these were the orders of the Regional Security Council. The parties ought to respect the agreements that they themselves have signed. So the MPP, the NDC try to bus people, they will be stopped. If the NDC try to bus people, they will be stopped. If the CPP try to bus people, they will be stopped. If the PNC try to bus people, they will be stopped. All I urge the political parties to do is to respect what they have signed. Allow the people to go individually and register. And those people can only be challenged. But when you try to bus people, it is the duty of the security services, whether it is the military or the police, to stop you. Because that was the agreement from the Regional Security Council. That is for Banda and Hinko. But generally, the former president is wrong. He's misled to think that the military is being used to suppress people. The voter region his size. Can anybody tell me that the figures in voter region are lower than the national average? Obviously no. So where is the voter suppression? Are the figures in the north lower than the national average? Obviously no. Are the figures in Greater Accra lower than the national average? Obviously no. So where is the voter suppression? Secondly, we have over 30,000 polling stations. How many polling stations have we seen soldiers visit for anybody to conclude that there's voter suppression? Of course, they have visited places where there's trouble, and that's their job, and they will continue to visit places where there's trouble. But for anybody to conclude, especially a former president and commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, that there's voter suppression I think he's misleading the people. So I am challenging him. I'm calling on the former president to provide us with evidence, and we will act. But as I see today, it's only mere allegation. He has not provided us with any evidence. As I said, if he's talking about Bandan Hinkro, he should advise his people to start basing people. It is not allowed. And the military will continue to stop people who are basing people. Allow the people to go and register themselves. It's not your duty to bas people. Allow them to register. And everybody will be allowed to register. But you cannot bas people. They signed an agreement not to bas anybody. So the MPP, the political parties, I am telling them that if you attempt to bas people, we will stop you. Whether it is NDC, MPP, CPP, will stop you, because it is only bringing a reaction from the opposite side. If the MPP try to bas people, the NDC will try to stop them. And we don't want that to happen. So the security will stop you before you bring trouble. If the NDC tries to bring people, the MPP will want to stop them. And so that is it. And that agreement is general knowledge. It's everywhere for anybody who wants to see. And I have copies here that the agreement has been signed by all of them. And unfortunately, Johnson Asedin-Ketia refused to respect that agreement. He knew that they had signed to it. He knew that his candidate had signed to such an agreement, that they shouldn't bas anybody. And for me to watch that video and see him with vast loads of people following him to a polling station is really unfortunate. And I think that he should not repeat that any longer. Lastly, the position of the former president is a revered position. And I think that for him to continuously and his party try to run down the military is very unfortunate. It is in their interest not to try to run down the only institution that will be the last man standing to protect us. He was just the commander-in-chief 4 years ago. And I'm very much worried that he's taking a deliberate step to run down the military of Ghana. He did it in Aflawo. He was called out. He couldn't provide evidence. He's doing it again. Let him and let the NDC know that the military of Ghana is a very professional institution. They will not and cannot be used by any individual to do their dirty work. The days when the military could be used to do that are over. And I've always said, any party that has a history of using the military to do things that are not good is the NDC. Akufo-Addo is a Democrat. He has no intention. It's not in his blood to use the military to do any dirty work for him. He doesn't need to. Any clean election in Ghana, that is the vote of violence, cheating, intimidation, Akufo-Addo will win that election over John Mahama any day. We don't need to. We don't need to. If the NDC have policies, they should bring the policies on the table. The NDC over the last 12 years have had 8 years of ruling this country. We have had 3.5. Let's compare our 3.5 against their 8 years. And when we compare the records, we will see who is better. And the people of Ghana will decide. That's what we are calling for. We're not calling for accounts versus Evers and that kind of thing they are hyping up. It doesn't help anybody. Am I an account? If Akufo-Addo were so vindictive, or this government was so vindictive, I'll not be standing here as the defense minister. You know the little village I come from in the north. But today I'm the defense minister. It's one of the most powerful positions in government. So if they were so vindictive against others, why would I be a defense minister? I think that this nation is for all of us. The military will protect everybody. And the military will be proactive in making sure that there's peace in Ghana. I thank you. And if there are no questions, let me know.
Still in Parliament, the minority is threatening the Defence Minister Dominic Nittiwul with a vote of censure over what they say is military intimidation of prospective voters in NDC strongholds. Ranking member on the Defence and Interior Committee of Parliament, James Agalga, says there is more than enough evidence to back their claims that the military is being used as a political tool. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is in Parliament for us, and he's standing by with Mr. Agalga. Joseph, what are we learning so far? Right, Joseph, what are we learning so far? And for the sake of our viewers who don't know, what is a vote of censure?
Begin with a general reaction from Mr. Agalga to the comments that were put out earlier today by the Minister for Well, Mr. James Agalga, the ranking member on Parliament Committee on Defence and Interior, has been addressing a media briefing here in Parliament to respond to the issues that were raised by the Minister for Defence, Dominic Nitiwul, and his insistence that he would want to see evidence of the claims of intimidation as had been leveled. We will get into details on what Mr. Agalga said about the chances of a vote of censure of assault on the defense minister following what he says is abundant evidence that the military is being used as a political tool. But let's get a quick comment from him. What's your general reaction to the demand for evidence by the Minister for Defense, that Dominic Nitiwul, insisting that there is no case of intimidation happening as far as the registration process are concerned in the various parts of the country?
No, the demand for evidence, even in the face of pictorial evidence, and this is, the media is awash with the evidence I'm talking about, it's most regrettable. You will see the pictures clearly which depicts soldiers dressed in combat gear with armored vehicles, right, preventing Ghanaians from crossing over to a registration center to register. And you say that is not intimidation? You see the General Secretary of the NDC, Asiodun Ketia, in an open confrontation with the soldiers. I have the pictures here. You see the pictures for yourselves. So
we've seen those videos.
In the face of the evidence we have, and this is too common to find, if you ask that evidence be provided again, I think it's most unfortunate. Look,
we sought answers to that from Minister Nitiwul, and he says the military was only enforcing a directive that had come from the Bono Regional Security Council that no one engages in the busing of people to registration centers, and that this is what they were doing, and the military were only ensuring that the RegSec directive was enforced to the latter. What do you say to such a reaction?
Look, I've made the point, and I'll repeat myself, that RegSec is not a law unto itself. RegSec cannot take a decision that contradicts the Constitution. Or RegSec cannot take a decision which seeks to undermine the fundamental rights of citizens. And what's the nature of the decision RegSec reached? That nobody should engage in the busing of Ghanaians to go to the registration centers to perform their civic obligations by getting their names onto the voters' roll. Look, why? The circumstances the people around the Banda area find themselves is compelling enough for them to look for buses and commute between where they live, their settlements, and the nearest registration center. I have been reliably informed that these are people who were displaced as a result of the construction of the Bui hydro power project. So they have to relocate to very remote areas in the Banda traditional area of the Bono region. And I'm told that the nearest registration center in most cases is up to 20 miles, 14 miles. So you expect the people to travel by foot or ride donkeys to the registration center. They would definitely have to find buses and commute to the nearest registration center.
Does he have to political parties organizing these buses for them?
Why, even if political parties were to facilitate this, what's wrong with that? What is wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
So for you, this directive is out of...
The EC ought to have made provision for these people to register wherever they are in their new settlements. But the failure on the part of the EC to ensure that registration centers were created in the new settlements that sprang up as a result of the construction of the Bui dam, you don't think there's something wrong with that? And when we make the case that these were part of the deliberate schemes to disenfranchise people who are perceived to be Voltarians living in the Banda region, people say, oh, no, we are rabble rousers. But the evidence is now clear. Why did those soldiers mount roadblocks to prevent those people who are Ghanaians. Nobody has denied that they are not Ghanaian. In fact, in times past, these people were attacked just before the commencement of the registration exercise. They were attacked, brutally attacked. And those who carried out the attack are still roaming free because of their ethnicity. They are Voltarians. They were told in plain language that they should go to the Volta region and register. They wouldn't allow them to register in the Banda area. But you see, these are dangerous times. And everybody should be worried about these developments. These people you are talking about have resided in that area in the early 1900s. In fact, they have representation on the Banda Traditional Council. Okay, so they have integrated so well, seamlessly with the Banda people. They have intermarried over the period. And so if you now go in there to play on the ethnic card and say these people cannot register because of their ethnicity, are you not pushing us into a situation where you have challenges that you wouldn't be able to resolve?
I'll delve into the larger subjects of intimidation a while, but if the situation in the Banda area is so terrible that busing needs to be done, why did the NDC candidate, who is also the first deputy minority whip, Ibrahim Ahmed, sign onto the said agreement that was signed with RECSEC, from what the defense minister tells us, alongside the NPP candidate Joe Dankwa, that everyone pulls brake on the busing of people to the various centers? Because that's the claim Dominic Nitiwul is making, that your candidate actually signed onto that.
First of all, did you ask Honorable Dominic Nitiwul to furnish you with evidence which shows that it is the NDC candidate who decided to bus those people from their settlements to go and register? Did he furnish you with the evidence?
In one of the cases, allegedly, your general secretary was even leading the process.
The general secretary went there to monitor the exercise and to encourage Ghanaians who have attained the age of majority, 18 and above, and are of sound mind, to go and register.
In one of the videos, he was specifically, raising questions about how the military was stopping one of the buses.
Why not?
That was actually...
Why not? Why not? And who says the people are not capable of hiring buses on their own to commute from the remote areas their new settlements have sprung up to the nearest registration center and register? Has anybody furnished you with evidence to show that the people did not on their own hide those buses?
So you're insisting that's what happened, that the NDC, your general secretary, your candidate is not responsible for the said case of busing in defiance of the RECSEC director, that the people were doing it on their own?
The rule is evidence, and that rule has been propounded by the minister. And so I would subject him to the same test. He should furnish us with the evidence which shows that those people you see in the videos were bused by the NDC candidate. All the general secretary went there to do was to get people to go and register, perform their civic duties as citizens. What's wrong with that? Is there anything wrong with that? Look, in this exercise, we have even seen NPP, National Youth Organizer, right, move with his followers to senior high schools in clear breach of the what was the name of COVID-19 protocols.
Let's run up on this bit.
So if General Mosquito goes there to get people out to register, it doesn't mean he's based anybody. I'm saying that the people have every right to travel to the nearest registration centers and buses. The RECSEC is not a law unto itself, right, which can take it upon itself to forbid people from boarding buses to the nearest registration center to register.
Very well. So
they don't have that power.
So as the people's representative, in the light of these concerns you're raising with the work that the armed forces is doing, and possibly the role of the defense minister, what action do you intend taking here in Parliament?
What is the role of the defense minister apart from trying to justify what is unjustifiable? He spoke to the media and asked that President Mahama should rather be the one to furnish them with evidence. We are simply saying that the evidence is there. You find the evidence. I mean, you can go to the social media is awash with the evidence. You don't even need to be furnished with the evidence in order to act. So we expect him to act. rather than say President Mahama should furnish him with it. In any case, if he wants, I can furnish him with the evidence. I have it on my phone. I can furnish him with the evidence on behalf of President Mahama. So we expect them to act. If they don't act, we have every right under the standing orders to censure them, to have them censured. We've made the point. So we expect him to investigate all those involved who have acted unlawfully, whether they are acting on the instructions of RECSEC or not. We're saying that RECSEC is not a law unto itself. Whoever sat at that RECSEC and took those illegal decisions should be held accountable.
And if the minister doesn't do that?
Well, of course, we've said he is a member of parliament, he's a minister of state, he can be censured. But those members of RECSEC were calling on the president. It's so shocking that the president would say he's unaware of harassment and intimidation at registration centers when a minister, cabinet minister under his watch, fired warning shots at a registration center. What did the minister achieve? People took to their heels, including the EC officials. Tell me if that is not intimidation and harassment.
The president was not being honest with Ghanaians.
Absolutely, he was not being honest with Ghanaians. He has failed us. He has failed to provide security at the various registration centers. This is the same president whose security agents arrested some political actors when they sounded the alarm bells that the registration exercise was going to be characterized by violent scenes. You see, they have been vindicated. They've been vindicated now. You have a president who is so pretentious to the extent that you come back and tell us that he is unaware. But Ghanaians are aware, and we only show him the exit in December because he's not on top of the issues. He's not.
And if that happens, what will happen to the armed forces itself? We've had some of your party people threatening in the past that they would deal with security agents and all hand power changes hands.
Well,
in the light of these, what you call increased intimidation, yes, is that a position you would endorse? Is that what you guys may do to
as a party,
armed forces?
The NDC as a party has not got any mechanism of dealing with soldiers or police officers who breach their own regulations. There are regulations. For instance, you take the armed forces regulations, the police service regulations on discipline. So those rules, properly speaking, should be invoked at the appropriate. Now you don't have the will, but the rules are there.
So when NDC gets to power, then you allow or cause the invocation of those rules.
Of course, if anybody breaches the rules, the regulations of the service you belong to, that is what must happen.
Very well.
The superior officers are supposed, without anybody's prompting, to subject you to the full rigors of the regulations.
Very well. Many thanks for joining us there. James Agalga is the ranking member on Parliament's Committee on Defence and Interior. He's also the NDC MP for Busa North, speaking to us there. Daniel, back to you.
Thank you very much, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo. He's in Parliament for us there. You just heard him speak to the ranking member on the Defence and Interior Committee of Parliament, talking about a vote of censure on that is being threatened on the Defence Minister. Joseph, before we let you go, though, is there any other thing happening on the floor of Parliament today? Right, we will get Joseph back to get a few updates on happenings in the chamber, but in Banda in the Bono region last week, the NDC accused the military of preventing people perceived to be their supporters from registering. Now, a video in which some military men and the NDC General Secretary Johnson Esedun Ketia are seen in the area has surfaced. Watch this.
On to no more the Papa for no. One can't say only to no one family round. I don't hear Basramo. Obia Timinye, Moganian citizenship, and free more. Naya Shamu Bosse. Sadia Musido Suhano. Yaba by moi. For settlement towns, Sumina, Yabara, never be a Sukubia or no. Yaba Bessinu ye. If you say higher and the motive,
Member of Parliament for Ketu South, Fifi Kwete, has described as unfortunate government's denial of knowledge on alleged intimidations by the military against Evers at some voter registration centers across the country. The MP was reacting to President Akufo's statements that he is unaware of any form of intimidation at any registration center in the country.
I would say I'm not surprised at all. It doesn't come to me as a surprise. Because you see, when you create the impression that the only reason why you have lost elections in the past is because aliens and foreigners came and voted against you, and then now you do everything possible to so-called prevent those aliens from registering, and only to realize that the numbers that are registering are still continuing, even though you have locked the borders, you have sent soldiers, so-called preventing people from coming. The people in Ketu South continue to come out in their numbers and coming out. There's nothing we can do except to try to use some of these communist inferior tactics that they are using, going to literally disturb people in queues, telling them that they are not Ghanaians, they cannot register. But you must also appreciate that this is not happening just in Ketu South. I'm sure you have seen videos that even as far as even Bronga Harford, where Evers are, the same thing is going on, where they are being prevented from voting. They are doing the same thing to other people who are non-accounts in different places. I mean, which tells you that there is a tribal agenda that MPP is pushing. And that is unfortunate. This is a country that has one destiny, made up of one people. We've lived together, worked together, contributed together for a country. And we should not allow the desperation for power to split us into what you call unit that we want to fight each other. It's totally not needed. You understand? So in unity is our strength. But unfortunately, it does not appear that Nana Akufo-Addo and this government understand the need for keeping this country together and respecting that we are all one people, even though we come from different places, speak different languages, but we all work together, I mean, for the same destiny of our country. As I said already, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. I mean, because you know, I mean, if you know exactly the history of Nana Akufo-Addo, you know that even in 2008, when, for example, things were becoming hot for him, people in his party were even making plans to even come and put dead bodies in water bodies in the Volta region. So there is already history, a long history, that whenever he's desperate for power, the first group of people that he thinks about in terms of attacking are the people who come from Volta region.
Let's stay in the Ketu South constituency because the MPP has been addressing a news conference on the voter registration there. Fred Kwame Asare has joined us on the phone line to take us through what was discussed. Fred, what are some of the key points that were raised at that news conference? Okay, Daniel, you know that the Ketu South constituency has been in the news for alleged intimidation against some people who had come to apply for, or who had gone to the registration centers to apply for voters' ID card, among others. So the regional chairman, McAfee Wanya, that is the NPP regional chairman, McAfee Wanya, has been addressing some of these issues. He first laid point congratulating the EC for ensuring that the ongoing exercise is successful, even though the opposition NDC casted gloom and then threatened mayhem earlier in the build-up to starting the exercise. He also mentioned that the NDC, realizing that they lost their case, they decided to make a U-turn and then also haul the EC to court, which they also lost. He again mentioned that realizing the deployment of military at some unapproved routes at the Ketu South constituency resulted in the increase in unapproved routes. He mentioned that as of or before the start of the exercise, there were 43 known unapproved routes in the Ketu South constituency. However, following the commencement of the registration exercise, this number has increased to 150, which indicates that there has been 107 new unapproved routes that have been created along the Ghana-Togo border in the Ketu South constituency. He also mentioned that the police have been able to arrest some people. He mentioned a total of 650 people have been arrested, where he said some have been prosecuted, some have been deported, and then some are in
quarantine.
You know what, Fred? Let's take a listen to the MPP news conference there, then we'll come back to you.
Instructive to have a cursory look at some figures emanating from the ongoing registration exercise. If you have not started doing the analysis by yourself already, even before the exercise comes to a close, let's look closely at the famous Ketu South. In 2016, there were 208 polling stations in Ketu South. The total registered voters stood at 149,219. Today, there are 254 polling stations, and in spite of this, coupled with the security lapses, the propaganda, mobilization, and deliberate busing of foreign nationals across the Ghana-Togo border through the creation of 107 new unapproved routes. This is how the figures stand at the end of the fifth phase. Phase 1, 17,399. Phase 2, 15,817. Phase 3, 27,694. Phase 4, 25,450. On the good people of the Volta region, particularly those in the diaspora, to stop swallowing the dirty NDC propaganda and to disregard the ugly noises and tribal tirades. It is their strategy for soliciting funds and undeserved sympathy, whipping up tribal sentiments and emotions of the votarians during registration periods and voting has been an old trick and stock in trade of the NDC. This is the time for the NDC to be accounting to the people of the Volta region about their development impact, if any, in the region in the last 8 years under Mahama, and the reason why the Volta region should give them their support again. We are ready and prepared to compare the records. We are ready to take the media on a tour to all the old and the newly created and approved routes across the region, with a special emphasis on Ketu South. Thank you. The big question to us is why the NDC is always determined to sacrifice our national security and patriotism just to mobilize other nationals to participate in our internal politics and invest hugely in the mobilization of foreigners to register in this country of ours. The worst is the shameless use of tribal and ethnic politics to achieve their purpose at all costs. A very dangerous trend that must be addressed before it blows in our face. It will interest you to note that at the beginning of the registration exercise, there were 43 unapproved routes in Ketu South alone. But today, additional 107 new routes have been created in Ketu South, bringing the total of the known unapproved routes to 150 in Ketu South alone, making it practically difficult, if not impossible, for immigration.
So live on the pulse, let's wrap up with Fred Kwame Asari, who's still with us on the phone lines. So Fred, tell us about the general atmosphere at Ketu South. How are the people reacting to this alleged intimidation?
Daniel, I should say that the atmosphere in the Ketu South constituency has been that of a good one. Earlier in the morning, I counted about 5 Isuzu pickups that had military personnel on. They were driving towards the border. Then I also saw some military personnel at some unapproved routes in the constituency. However, the registration centers I visited earlier are almost empty. I should say that most people have already registered. So there are just a few people who were waiting for their turn to take part in the registration exercise. However, not spoken to people about the alleged intimidation. But then the NDC has been complaining of such intimidations earlier. Earlier, we had issues of the Ketu South NDC parliamentary candidate confronting DCE of the Ketu South municipality, the Ketu South MP, that is Elliot Agbenowu. So I should say that the atmosphere in the Ketu South constituency has been that of a great one.
Thank you very much, Fred Kwame Asari, for joining us. Now, he is from the Volta region. Let's go a bit further up north to the OT region, where 9 persons have been arrested on suspicion they faked their nationalities in order to obtain a voter's ID card in Ghana. They've appeared before court. Now, on the phone with us is our OT region correspondent, Peter Senu. So, Peter, give us the background to this story.
Right, Fred, Daniel, yesterday we understand some operatives of national security picked up 12 people who were in queue to register at Kodibenu Munyako here in the KTB district or the Akan constituency. They picked them up on suspicion that they were Togolese, and then also went to Chikata, also a community, and a registration center there, and then picked 5 people on suspicion that they were Togolese. And so following that into today, 9 people have been formally arraigned before court, and then as we speak, they are on what I'm told is court inquiry bail, a charge they quoted as electoral offenses, registration of aliens. That can be found in the CI 126. And so that is for them. 5 of the number have been, released earlier for, should I say, warrant of prosecution, because they were said to be victim of circumstances. They were just picked up when they were returning from funeral. And the 3 nursing mothers who were also picked up at Kodibenu Munyako yesterday have also been released on what I'm told is police inquiry bail. And so that is the situation as we speak now.
It's my understanding, Peter, that one of these nursing mothers was not feeling well.
Yes, that is it. But it's one of the elderly men among the 12 who wasn't feeling well.
Is he still in police custody, this person who is sick?
Yes, well, as I can see him now, he's okay. He's walking normally. I've seen him move around. And so I understand early in the morning that he was going to go to a hospital at Jasikan for a review per doctor's instruction. And so I'm sure he went and came back, so I can see him around looking good than yesterday, Daniel.
Now, these accused persons, Peter, have they spoken? What did they have to say for themselves?
Well, in court, what they said in court is that they will have nothing to say for now until they meet their lawyers. And so that is how come the case has been adjourned till Thursday. Their lawyer also have a case which will have a review on Thursday. And so the adjournment was for Thursday so that their lawyer will be present and do whatever argument he has to do in their favor.
And who, might I ask, is this lawyer?
Lawyer Kojogan Adaudu. He came in for an earlier similar case. And so he has a review of that case come this Thursday.
Right. Thank you very much, Peter Senu, for joining us this afternoon. He is, of course, our OT region correspondent. Now, still live on the Pulse. We'll take a quick breather, but still up ahead with barely 4 months to election 2020. We ask, has the nation learned lessons from the bloody Ayawaso West Wogon by-election with pockets of violence at registration centers? Are there any lessons to be learned? We'll have a conversation after this. And thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. My name is Daniel Dazen. Now, with barely 4 months to election 2020, we ask, has the nation learned lessons from the bloody Ayawaso West Wogon by-election with pockets of violence at polling stations? Are there any lessons to be learned? Joining us via Zoom for a conversation is Sadiq Educhum. He's Executive Director for the Institute of Security and Safety Policy Research, ISSAPR. He's a former naval officer. He served with the UNHQ in DR Congo. Mr. Educhum, thanks for joining us. Right, Mr. Educhum, if you can hear me, good afternoon. Welcome to the Pulse.
Thank you very much. Let me extend my greetings to your cherished viewers out there, and also commend your team for the good work that you are doing. As a matter of fact, when we have the media this way, it brings and it helps us to be able to consolidate the democratic gains that we've had so far. My initial comment will be that it's rather unfortunate that we are experiencing this pocket of violence in the registrations. But I mean, it's bound to happen some way, somehow, through the processes that we normally go through during such periods. So it's bound to happen, but it is something that we always admonish that we are to make the processes so transparent and so accountable that such incidences as we move on as a democratic nation will not happen. But this is a human institution. Somehow, some way, you will have a few infractions here and there.
So first of all, you touched on how we must make processes in a way that these things don't repeat themselves. One would have expected that after Ayawaso West were gone, we would be able to put in place what we need to prevent this from happening any further.
Yeah, it's one of the tenets of good governance is a rule of law. What happened after the Ayawaso incident, after the short commission was set up? I'm sure there were certain recommendations that were supposed to carry out, but as usual, we always say that commissions are set up, their findings are presented. The onus line on the government of the day or the president of the day to see to what aspects of the recommendations that has to be implemented. One of the key things is about the issue of certain national security operatives. What has happened to these people? If nothing has happened to these people as the recommendation set out to suggest, then it tells you that it gives way for people to continue to commit such infractions, because then it means that nothing will happen to them. And that is the danger. That is actually the danger when it comes to the electoral processes. But because the election itself normally do not present so much of a problem, but the processes that lead to the election. So if we do not have quality electoral processes, then trust you me that the election on the 7th December will not be as smooth as we all thought to anticipate.
Sadiq Educhum, we are very grateful for your time this afternoon here on The Pulse. We stay on the matter of elections because the Electoral Commission is vowing to expunge the names of foreigners from the voters' register. It has revealed that it has so far exceeded its target of 15 million voters on the roll. There have so far been reports of security agencies preventing some persons from registering. The Commission says only Ghanaians will be allowed to register as it wraps up the exercise this week. Jude Mensah is chairperson.
And on behalf of the Commission, I would like to reiterate that our desire is to have a credible and clean register. And as a Commission, we'll make sure that we have all the avenues and mechanisms in place to ensure that we have a clean and credible register. A register that reflects Ghanaians and Ghanaians only. A register that reflects persons who are eligible and eligible only. And so, as part of our process of cleaning, we would engage in and use all mechanisms available to clean up the register to ensure that no one who is not qualified has his or her name in the register. So I believe that these are processes that we would inform you about as we go on, but it is our desire and our determination to ensure that our register is clean. I believe that if we go to our neighboring countries, we would not have the opportunity to register there and to be on their roll. Those who must determine who leads this country must be Ghanaian. And as a commission, it is our duty to ensure that the register reflects Ghanaians and Ghanaians only, and Ghanaians who qualify to vote in the election. So this is just, to sum up that as we go on, these are some of the processes that we are engaged on and in. Our attention has been drawn to attempts by foreigners, and we call on stakeholders, citizens, and the police to be vigilant, and our citizens as well to be vigilant. I do not believe that any of us can go to Togo or Cote d'Ivoire, Benin or Niger for that matter, and go and register to vote as citizens there. And therefore, the onus is on all of us as citizens to be vigilant. And we are asking Ghanaians, when you go to a registration center in the next few days and you see people who are not citizens trying to vote, can you please draw our attention to it so that we can take the necessary action? But whilst we recognize that some of them may have, found their way on our register, we like to assure all Ghanaians that we as a commission will do our best to expunge their names and to ensure that at the end of the day, only Ghanaians who are eligible find their names on the
Deputy Chairperson Dr. Bosman Asare says the Commission has exceeded its target.
15,117,438. There are no changes in terms of the positions of the regions. However, we notice that in percentage terms, some regions have increased whilst others have decreased. With the remaining days for the registration exercise, we expect to see the numbers increasing in the regions where the registrations are taking place in urban centers with a lot of people. On this final table, the four most populous regions are giving us almost 58% of all registered voters. That's the Greater Accra region, the Ashanti region, the Eastern and the Central regions. In conclusion, what the final figure indicates is that we have exceeded our target of 50 million. We are very grateful to the people of Ghana for their cooperation in reaching this milestone. As we have indicated on several platforms, the Commission is deeply committed to registering all those who are qualified under CI 91, CI 126 as amended, and under the 1992 Constitution. So what the Commission is saying finally is that for all those who have been registered, the Commission is urging them to go to the registration centers in their electoral areas to register for their voters' ID card.
Well, the National Peace Council says in spite of its efforts to ensure peace in the country, some political actors have remained resolute in an attempt to dent its image and discredit them. Dr. Nana S.K. Asante was speaking at an inaugural ceremony of a 10-member committee to monitor and ensure effective compliance of the roadmap signed by the political parties to do with acts of vigilantism.
We are talking, when people accuse us of bias, it is their subjective view that we have not been even-handed with political parties. Now, I'm saying that our role is not issued denunciations from time to time. It's a misreading of our central role, which is really mediatory. And therefore, take what we have done in the Code of Conduct. If from the very beginning we have said that, oh, this party has got the vigilante which has done this, we condemn it and so on and so on, without involving the others in a protracted process and a delicate process of negotiation, we never have got this Code of Conduct. So we are mandated, if you look at the provisions, I would like you to look at the provisions which I have quoted in my speech. I'm sorry we're not here. You know, we are not condemning this, we are biased and so forth. The allegation of bias has been made by both parties. Do you know that? Over the years, they have been made by both parties. Whenever each party feels that their case is not getting an hearing or the other side is not being condemned, then they say Peace Council. But it is not the function of the Peace Council to issue denunciation left and right. We are to resolve through mediation and so forth conflicts.
Seeking to undermine your effectiveness and everything.
Yes, that's why I delivered this speech. That those sins undermine our responsibility.
And you want political parties?
And I want political parties and persons within the political parties and outside people to stop those sort of attacks on the ground that we have not taken on one political party or we have not denounced this. Our role is not to issue those kind of denunciations from time to time on single acts. We have just declared, we issued a statement deploring the violence going on in the registration exercise. It is not our role to say that A did this and A did this, because even a court of law has to wait until matters are brought to the court to resolve. A commission of inquiry is set up when there's incidents of this. It will be counterproductive for the National Peace Council to issue instant judgments here and there. But if there's a pattern going on, we'll certainly point it out. You see, if you are playing a mediation role, you really have to be careful that you do not appear to be so judgmental that your effectiveness as a mediator is undermined.
So then how do you feel, the Peace Council, when you hear these attacks?
I feel very apprehensive. If you read it, as I am, this is it. If you see my paper, I say I've been highly disturbed by the speech of scurrilous media and personal attacks on the integrity and performance of the National Peace Council. And I go on to say that, in my respectful view, these misinformed but highly damaging criticisms stem from a failure to appreciate the scope of NPC's mandate.
I said clearly you're worried about the development.
Yes, I'm not happy. I know the members of the National Peace Council. They're very, very respectable, men who are held in high esteem, men and women. And from time to time, I hear people really attacking us in most correct as if we have no integrity and so forth. I am an Omangene. I am somebody who's been involved in the constitution making of this country. People respect me. So when I see these things, I am upset. And it's only because somebody, and I'm sure that those who are attacking us haven't read the acts. I'm certain. And if they read the act and know our functions, they should not be doing that. And of course, we are also defenseless. If you attack a political party, you will get a response. If you attack a court of law, you be held before a court of law for contempt of court, and so forth and so on. The National Peace Council, very, noble gentlemen who do not feel like descending into the arena. They are attacked and they keep quiet. I'm a lawyer. I really feel that I have a duty to bring out this.
A senior research fellow at IDEC, Dr. Kwesi Jonah, who spoke on behalf of the monitoring committee, anticipates some attacks on its members, but however says the committee is poised.
So much partisanship in our democracy that it doesn't matter what report we come out with. Somebody will always call you are supporting. From the way you spoke, I think you support SNYS, but as patriots, we have accepted we have undertaken to do this monitoring, and I think we shouldn't look over our shoulders. We should do the work as diligently, as passionately as possible, regardless of what people say.
But your critics say that you've already even failed with this inauguration because the political parties, as you mentioned, very partisan society.
Very partisan. And they are becoming more and more partisan and polarizing the society all the time. But believe you me, looking at the members, the composition of this monitoring committee, we are going to do the work dispassionately, objectively, without looking over our shoulders at all.
How confident are you that the political parties will avail themselves and submit themselves to the rules?
No, don't forget about the role of this committee. This is not a police force. You are not going to arrest anybody, you are not going to imprison anybody, you are not even going to sentence anybody. The duty we have is to tell the good people of Ghana, over the past 1 month, over the past whatever, these are the violations. The parties have voluntarily undertaken to abide by a set of codes. So to tell the good people of Ghana, over the past, this is what we have seen. Vigilante groups belonging to this party committed, these are treasure things here and there and so on and so forth. It's up to the people of Ghana. We don't look upon this committee as a police force that has the capacity to arrest people and so on and so on. Let's
speak to Dr. Erecodro Osai. He's the Dean of Studies and Research at the Institute of Local Government Studies. Dr. Osai, thanks for joining us. If you can unmute your audio, kindly, Dr. Erecodro Osai. So we were talking about learning the lessons really from Ayawaso West Wuogon. In your view, have we learned those lessons?
Well, I think they are early days yet, but the measures put in place by the security agencies suggest that we are gradually learning some lessons out of that. But I think I would advise that we should not compare the Ayawaso case with the national character of what is happening. The Ayawaso case is an isolated case in one suburb within a constituency, in fact, one polling station. The energy and the strategy we need to deal with the issues at stake now requires a national strategy. So I would advise that the security agencies should rather look at it on a national scale, put in place appropriate intelligence on the ground. I think there is gradually a failure between intelligence and security. Because if intelligence are always on the ground, some of these things will be seen or known ahead of time to allow security to move. So I'm advising the managers of our national security to work towards improving the collaboration and coordination between intelligence and security. Now, those strategies must be national in character.
Now, Dr. Drosai, I'm asking about this in particular because, again, we see military personnel or state security forces being accused of carrying out the work of a certain political party, and which is exactly what we saw in the Ayawaso West Wuogon time, these accusations being made. So the question here is that, have the security agencies done enough to engender trust in a political space?
I think they have not done enough, but they are working on it. Whichever way you look at it, you get one party complaining. But like Dr. Kwesi Jonas said, it should take the security agencies to be able to rebrand themselves, to be able to send a signal that they are there for all political parties. They are there for Ghanaians. They should exhibit a nationalistic character. And once they do that, people will have confidence in them. Because if they are not able to do that and people start saying that, look, they want to defend themselves, that is also total chaos. And that should not be encouraged in our system. So the security agencies would have to approach this issue in a nationalistic character and send a confidence signal among all the parties.
But do they have the independence to do that? And pardon me, I'm asking my listeners, my viewers to pardon me because I may be sounding like a broken record, but the question of an independent police system and an independent police complaints commission has come up, using that as an example, because we have talked about the military. These two, as an example, have come up on countless occasions. The political elite just seems to lack the motivation to truly make these security agencies independent.
You see, it's a creature of our law. It's a creature of our law. So let us force them to be national in character. And then after the elections, we should reach a national consensus towards depoliticizing, if anything at all, the security agencies. Because anytime there's a change in government, the head of the security agency is changed. When it happens like that, you don't give them the security of tenure to be able to perform their functions as required as professionals. That is not to say that they are not professional. But I think there is something fundamentally wrong with our constitution and the way heads of security agencies and even the way the police council is constituted. It is a constitutional matter, and it is a national conversation we need to have if we do not want to see these things happening in future.
You began this answer by saying, let us force them. How do we do that?
We try to expose the security agencies that are biased, those persons who are biased, and then we try to get the security agencies themselves to use their internal systems to sanction officers who turns out to be apolitical or who turns out to support one political party or the other. Because I believe that they have sanctions regime within the system. They have administrative and disciplinary measures. I'm sure it is not all the policemen and women or all the military men who may end up behaving in such a way that or actions to suggest that they are on the side of one political party. Let us name and shame. Once we continue to name and shame, we'll be able to put them on their toes. Apart from that, we should use the judicial systems. Where people's rights are being trampled upon, where people think they have been unnecessarily discriminated against, they should use the law courts. And once we get some of these rulings going in favor of citizens who think their security or their rights have been trampled upon on the basis of discrimination from any of these security agencies, they will sit up.
Dr. Eric Odrosai, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
We move from elections, and one of the key suspects in the Kafaba murder case has been charged with murder. Latifa Bumaye participated in the lynching and murder of 90-year-old Ikia Dente at Kafaba in the Savannah region. The 25-year-old, who was arrested over the weekend, claimed she was possessed and did not know she was torturing her grandmother. But the court, presided over by His Lordship Prince Kujo, remanded the suspect into police custody with a provisional charge of murder and to reappear in court on 20th August. Isaac Nonya is on the ground for us in the Savannah region. Isaac, tell us, how did the proceedings go?
Well, the suspect was brought in the tight security way. The court was already full before she arrived. When the case was called, she looked very remorseful, and the presiding magistrate reminded her of why she was in the court. And she nodded in the affirmative that she was aware. Then the presiding judge also reminded her that your being here is to go back to police custody and try and assist the police with all the information you have. Don't hide anything. So at the end of the day, they will identify whether you are guilty or you are not guilty. But don't conclude that you are guilty. One interesting thing that we picked in the court is that majority of the attendants in court were females. Women who came by numbers, having heard that the suspect will be brought in for hearing, actually came to have a glance at her, and they sat through the judgment. The magistrate barely spent some hours in court, 2 minutes, and then she was discharged to be taken back to Demago, where she will be kept and brought back alongside with other 5 who were initially remanded in police custody.
So what's the total number of suspects in police custody now?
There are 6, 5 males and 1 female.
We understand that the fetish priestess, one felon who wrapped something in a white wrapping and was hitting Ikia Denta, is still at large.
Yes, that suspect, Serena, is still on the run, and the rumors the police gathering is that she's in between Hamele in the Upper West region and Aflowo in the Volta region. But for now, there's no anywhere of her whereabouts. All they are doing is that they're still appealing to the public to be on the lookout and try and assist the police to bring her to book.
Do we know any more about Latifa Bumaye?
Latifa Bumaye, per the police interrogation and the information we have gathered on the ground, is that she didn't know the key suspect, Serena Fatima, anywhere. They met at Salaga, Kafaba, when the incident started. And she was brought in close confidence with Serena because the very night they went to the deceased house, she was there. And then she was approached by Serena to help her identify the reality or identity of the woman, whether she was really culpable or not. So they were chosen to actually do what they did, according to the police, what they gathered. So when she later on changed her plea that she was not aware, she was influenced by this thing, they said, okay, well, let the court decide whether you're really innocent or you're not innocent. But she's not the direct granddaughter of the disease. She is an extended family relative who lived with the disease for some time before this incident.
Thank you very much, Isaac, for joining us with those updates. Isaac Nonya speaks for us in the Savannah region. JoyNews is set to broadcast an investigative report detailing stealing of cocoa by produce clerks of licensed cocoa buyers today after a 2-year legal tussle. Missing Kilos explores how officials of state and privately licensed buying companies adjust weighing scales to steal as much as 100 kilos from a single farmer. In the first part of the 3-part documentary, JoyNews' investigative journalist Kwete Nate unveils a national plunder of the country's farmers.
After weighing my cocoa, I have brought the cocoa to the first shed at Amokwa. A man in his early 40s offers to buy the cocoa. He volunteers to carry the cocoa. He takes me to a mud-thatched house. He doesn't own his own shed. He weighs the cocoa at home. A bag of 70-kilogram cocoa now weighs 64 kilogram on his scale. He's demanding an extra 5 kilogram despite stealing 6 kilograms through the adjustment of the scale. In this community, it will be impossible to find a shed that will weigh cocoa at 64 kilograms. Is there a depot at Anyinase, or do they also weigh the bag at 70 kilograms? It won't be weighed at 64 kilograms, but you need to factor other costs such as transportation. I'm at the border town of Elubu. I want to test how pervasive this canker is in this region. This 6.4-foot tall purchasing clerk works with private license buying company Fudo. His shed looks like an old church block. It hasn't been whitewashed for a long while. He's taking stock of several bags of cocoa here, but he stops to attend to us. He drops the bag of cocoa on an old rusty scale. The 70-kilo cocoa now weighs 56 kilos. 14 kilograms is stolen on every bag brought to this shed. Is that your brother? What do you want me to do?
No, battery about okay, carry my.
If you want me to weigh, I have no issue. I will do it for you. You can come for the money tomorrow.
It's 57.
I'm at the State License Buying Company, PBC. A stout-looking produce clerk greets us with a smile. He indicates that he weighs a bag of cocoa at 67 kilograms instead of the official 64 kilogram unit set. Shockingly, the reading on the scale is 58 kilograms, a 12 kilogram difference. He indicates he will be deducting an extra kilo to dry the beans because they are not well dried.
Like the normal way they say.
What's the readings? I know that cocoa is supposed to be weighed at 64 kilograms.
67 kilos.
No, I weigh cocoa here at 67 kilograms.
Now, Public Affairs Director at Cocoa Board, Fifi Boafo, says measures have been put in place to address the problem. He says management has already given approval for the procurement and deployment of new electronic scales that will permanently fix the problem.
Admits that every introduction of a policy or a measure comes with its own set of challenges. But this is clearly something different from the example he cited. The example he cited whereby it was the same old scales, except that different people were trusted to make sure that it does not find its way into the hands of these rooks who will go and then manipulate it to the disadvantage of the cocoa farmers. These skills are not the ones which you have the opportunity to say that, okay, at this point in time, I am adjusting it by this percentage or by this margin. So it is our belief that this will come to be a big relief for the cocoa farmers. The chief executive has consistently, I think the last year, been talking about the introduction of these new skills, which we believe will solve the problem our farmers face. And anywhere we've been to where we had farmers rally and the chief executive talk about this introduction, the excitement on the faces of the cocoa farmers is a clear demonstration that, yes, they have a strong belief that this will be able to come and relieve them of such a burden they face. So trust me, this system will come as an initiative that is coming to solve the problem. As Cocoa Board is facilitating the procurement of these skills, and then the license buying companies will be using it because they are the people who will work with them. Okay. But the good news is that they do not have the power to manipulate it, whether it's in their possession or it's in the possession of another person. And there are a number of license buying companies which were found guilty of this act, and Standards Authority applied the sanctions.
What sanctions?
There are fees you are supposed to pay if you are found to be cheating cocoa farmers. And that's what Standards Authority ensured that was done.
And I'm on the pulse with me, Daniel Dazi. We'll be back. Welcome back to The Pulse. Thanks for staying with us. Now, 5,295 final year students in 110 schools are writing this year's senior high school examination in the Bono region amid tight coronavirus safety protocols. Now, after practicals, which started 2 weeks ago, the first batch candidates of government's free SHS policy are writing integrated science today across the country. A visit to some of the examination centers in Sunyani indicates all students and teachers are in face masks and observing social distancing. Head Marshal of the Sunyani Senior High School, Michael Nsie Japon, told JoyNews that parents have also been assured of the safety of their wards.
Today is the first day they are writing the core paper, and that is integrated science. You know, we have 869 candidates who are in final year, and we have 513 boys and 356 girls. Happily, they are all present. All the candidates are present, and they are all in good health. Because of the COVID protocols, we have 25 candidates to a class or a center, and we have spaced them enough, and we have a vigilator to each class with the supervisors going around to help. If there's any challenge, they will come in and assist. All the candidates have put on their nose masks, and they are looking smart in their uniforms and their nose masks. Some have their hand sanitizers on their decks, as you can see. And so far, we have not encountered any challenge. With the observance of all the necessary protocols and the students in high spirits, we don't anticipate any challenge.
Now, Sunyani Municipal Chief Executive Justina Owusu-Banahene, who has been touring schools in her catchment area, said she's satisfied with the measures in place to ensure the safety of all.
Both the students need to be applauded because what we want to see, what we want to hear is what we are seeing and hearing. As even the school, they have their own protocols, and the students are also all in their masks and with their hands sanitizer, even by their exam table. So it's also the kind of training they have received. So I think that together we have to thank the headmaster and his staff. They've done so much. And education director and her staff, as well as the government of the day. And we appreciate whatever you are doing. And together let us fight the COVID-19.
Now, some of the students who spoke to JoyNews said they are not worried about COVID-19 because of the strict protocols. They were also confident that they had been adequately prepared for the exams.
It was good. Everything went on successfully by the grace of God. So I was able to recall what I learned. And the questions were manageable. I had the confidence, and so I was able to calm the fear in me. I know God is with me, and I've prepared a lot, so I wasn't afraid at all. Not at all. And surely I'm going to pass, get a distinction.
We have already prepared for the WASI. We are ready to learn how so that we will gain what we want to gain in the future.
It was difficult, but we tried our best to do it.
Does that mean that the preparation didn't go too well?
Oh, it went very well. Yeah, we did what we can do. No, we're not afraid. It didn't affect us because we learned ahead.
Now, residents of Gaudumasi, Oshiman, Insakina and other areas in and around Pokuase say they are disappointed in President Akufo-Addo and his government for unfulfilled promises to fix their roads. Some disappointed citizens there who spoke to JoyNews' PSA Nanaya Osafo say the roads have seen a rise in premature births and miscarriages in pregnant women. They have also vowed not to vote, as doing so for decades is yet to yield results. There's more in the following report.
Holes in the roads are not a new development in Pokuase, a suburb of Accra under the Ga West Municipal Assembly. I'm currently squatting before one, the size of a small pool, and filling about a third of the roads here at the Pokuase-Odumase junction. Hundreds more like this are littered across the community. The stretch lasts for over 800 kilometers. That's some 30 minutes drive or so, lasting all the way from the Pokwase-Odumase junction to Amasaman, Seko, and Sawam, Kotoku, Obeyeye, Dobro, and many other environs, including Awushi, Banyard, all right here in Accra. One thing that you will notice is that rattling sounds from car bumpers, heartaches, backache, sweat, heat, and dust are usually highlights of the driving experience on these routes. The worst or the shocking news is that we are not even yet at the part of the route where the potholes are the steepest. This part of the road harbors potholes so large that it has become a temporary pond for all drivers that seek to get to the other side.
It's not good.
I'm going to speak to some of the residents here, the users of the road, on how they feel about it and how long this problem has occurred here.
Most of our mothers lose their pregnancies because of this condition of the road. The road is very rough, very bad. And the time that we relocated to this place, that was a year later, and we heard about many murders have been committed here. People have been robbed, and motor riders, and even market women. Some of them they have been robbed, some of them they have been killed. So please, we are apologizing to the president that he should please let the people to come and construct our road for our. But if this road is not constructed, we will never vote. We won't vote because we are fed up.
I want to remind President Akufo-Addo he has deceived us. He was here last November and promised to construct our roads within 3 weeks. If the roads are not fixed, he will lose the elections.
And Oka said 3 weeks time, Obama Yabe Yakwe, Mimna Mekans was me bois, baby, on from him. Akufo-Addo Bahabe Shayembo, Nanado Danko Beshayembo.
He promised our roads will be tarred before his next visit. I wonder how he will do that now when it's just 3 months to elections. Residents here are not respected as citizens.
Just say Obi Yale Krana with the name Oduma Hospital. Obedu Krana Kwanis Nini Panewu.
Many patients die before reaching the Oduman hospital. Women have had miscarriages due to the bad roads. Some have bled to death in vehicles. I want President Akufo-Addo to know I am a full member of the NPP. But if things don't change this year, I will not vote.
Frank Tete is assemblyman for the Nsakana electoral area, which includes Ga Odumase, Oshuman, and Ablikuma Abase. He assured residents works on roads will soon be done.
As you can see, the road network within my electoral area is fairly bad. And as we speak now, we are doing something about it. At the short facing for us, things will be done very well from next week going. The road, at least the main roads will be in shape from next week going. From Obeye to Nsakana to Duman to Abekuntu.
But some drivers of the Nsakana station, where residents of Ga Odumase, Oshuman, and some Pokwase residents board their commercial vehicles, say they are unmoved by this promise.
We are fed up with promises from both the NPP and NDC. They often do not fulfill them. I have been a driver here for almost 12 years.
What is the essence of voting now? We vote for our leaders to come and help us, but we are rather worsening the situation. So there's no need we vote for this year. This year, if they don't come to do the road, no votes. I have registered for the ID card, but I'm not going to vote. They come and give us assurance. We don't see any sign. The situation is just worsening and worsening.
The assemblyman, however, admits he's been unable to fulfill his earlier promises, but lays the blame at the doorstep of government. Would the people of this area be right if they say they are disappointed in government?
Yeah, to a large extent.
They are right?
Yeah, to a large extent. To a large extent, because the whole president came here and he assured us within 3 months we will see the tar road, but we couldn't see it. So to a large extent, they are right.
Will this promise ever be fulfilled? The residents are skeptical but want to be proved wrong. Residents here are not discriminating in their calls for road infrastructure, be it from central government or that of the local. They simply want their fair share of the national cake in the year of roads. PSC Nanaya Osafo, Joy News.
And you're live on the Pulse with me, Daniel Daze. Gary L. Smith is standing by with sports. That's up next. I'll be back at the top of the hour. Stay with us.